Hello, I'm Greg Allen, Executive Director of San Juan Safe Communities Initiative and a member of the Mental Health Task Force in San Juan County. September is National Recovery Month, and we would like to invite you to see each of the recovery stories that we air on Tuesday mornings on the San Juan County, New Mexico Mental Health Task Force Facebook page. You can also see these stories on the San Juan Safe Communities Initiative website and on our YouTube channel. Please help us spread the word by following the page and sharing any useful information that you may find there or on the Safe Communities website at sjsci.org. Today we have two recovery stories to share with you, one from Bonita and the other from Ade.
Hi, I'm Bonita, and this is my recovery story. My recovery story was a long time coming. I started drinking and doing drugs at the age of 11, and I was actually 51 years old whenever I came into recovery. So I had 40 years out there, basically in the wilderness. I actually came into recovery because I got into a lot of legal problems. I was handed a 10.5-year prison sentence for trafficking methamphetamine and given the chance to do long-term jail-based recovery and 5 years probation or 10.5 years in prison. It was really hard. I had never even thought about recovery. I really didn't know anything about the recovery community. I was able to move up here from southeastern New Mexico up here to Farmington and live with my mother, which helped. And I entered a 14-month program, the Access program, 2 months jail-based and the rest aftercare. And I also had the 5 years state probation, and it worked. So I did do all of my Access. Then I started going to the various 12-step groups. I went in, I guess you could say in a way, hostilely. I had to do it, and I was afraid of prison. I have 5 years, 10 months in recovery, and I love it. I never thought I would love it. I am excited about it. I want to help other people see the light, basically. That's what had to happen to me. Not knowing anything about recovery, like I said, I was a little hostile to it, but now that I have the years behind me and I'm able to sponsor and help other people, I attend a lot of events. I go to the Access graduations. I go and talk to the girls in the Access program. It just is exciting to me now. I love recovery, and I always thought I'd sound like a goody two-shoes saying this, but it is very exciting, and that's where my passion is right now. So when I was in my addiction, I really didn't see a future. All I did was run around from town to town and house to house, sell drugs, ruin my 30-year marriage. I had pretty much spent everything we had saved up for retirement and everything. Was running around with the wrong crowd, and I had no future. I couldn't see a future. I spent a lot of nights just sleeping in my car or staying away from the home because I probably felt guilty because I wasn't doing what human beings should do. I was out there pretty much, running the streets. It's easy to pick up ghetto language and learn to talk like that, but now I've learned recovery language. It's so different. I had a bleak outcome. When I moved up here, I had spent 2 months in Grants doing a little evaluation there, and all I remember is I had no soul. Everything was dark and gray, and nothing mattered. I pictured myself dying in prison at the time. So yeah, I saw no hope for the future. After having over 5 years of recovery under my belt now, my future looks totally different. I'm on crutches because I've got some leg problems and all, but that doesn't stop me from going to meetings and Zooming. During this COVID thing, we do a lot of Zoom. I live with my mother and we have learned to have a good relationship. I am single after 30-something years because I never had a good relationship. Now I've learned to have a good relationship with myself. Therefore, I can have one with others. My future, I might possibly go into peer mentoring. As it is, I do a lot of like informal work in the community. I still sponsor. I try to be available for the various functions we have here in town. I try to remain close and know some of the higher ups in this community as far as what's going on with recovery, and it's really exciting here. I don't know if my future holds a paying job as a peer mentor perhaps, or just continuing what I'm doing, which is extremely rewarding just on its own. But the future is bright today. So one of the most exciting things about my recovery is my health. I am actually very surprised to be around today. I contracted hepatitis C when I was 18 years old. It was non-A, non-B at the time, so it was just coming on. After having it 30 plus years, I was able to do one of the, it was Maverick. They call it a cure, but I have been in remission for 2 years. My liver count is 75% better. So just the fact that today there's help, you know, if you have contracted things like this in active addiction. Not only that, just once the body detoxes, it's a totally different. I was out there so long, my body was a toxic waste dump. So now it's nice to feel good and clean. It keeps me from wanting to do anything. I mean, this is great. I feel San Juan County has a very active and very excited community of recovering addicts. There's a lot of people there that have a lot of time under their belt that are willing to give their time to teach others, to give what they've been given. That's where I fit in. I'm not an old timer, but I'm hoping to work my way towards that. There's so many programs working in San Juan County now that it's really exciting. We definitely could use the help. This is a unique corner with all the different cultures and everything in it. So it's very exciting. I'm hoping to get a little bit more involved with it. So I'll be staying on the front page of all that's going on in the recovery community because I want to give back what I've been given.
Hi, I'm Ade Atencio, and this is my recovery story. So I started using alcohol when I was 4 years old. I come from a family that alcoholism and drug abuse is pretty much made into our DNA, and the more and more that the older I got, when I was 6 years old, I started messing around with marijuana. And then when I was 12 years old, my mother passed away. And that's when I started finding the bigger drugs, and I became very dependent on methamphetamines and alcohol. And it got to the point where I would go to school high or drunk, and I wasn't going to school anymore. I was fighting. There was so much anger, and when I had gotten out of school, I had fell into it harder, and I ended up getting pregnant, and I stopped with my first daughter, and then after that I ended up getting back into it pretty recently after I had her. On my second daughter, I ended up using while I was pregnant with her, and at the time it didn't affect me at all. I didn't think about her or the things that it was going to do to her. And I ended up having another daughter, which I didn't use as much. However, I did. And it got to the point where I would do anything I needed to get high. And the people I hung out with, I was working and I would go to the bathroom and get high. Or after I had my 4th daughter, I fell so deep that it got to the point where I knew my kids were there, but I wasn't a mom. And the drug overtook me, and I ended up taking my kids to their grandma, and I never went back. And I didn't give it a second thought. I thought about them, but I didn't care to go see them. I wanted the drug more than I wanted my kids. And I ended up getting caught up with some charges, and I couldn't stay clean on probation, so my PO kept throwing me in jail. And it got to the point where finally he didn't let me out, and I got sent to a treatment center. And when I was in treatment, it hit me hard. It got to the point where I tried to kill myself in treatment because I wanted to get high so bad, but at the same time I wanted to get sober, and I just couldn't find it in me. I was terrified to get out of treatment. I would beg and beg the counselors to not release me, to send me to a treatment where I could stay longer. And I seen one of my kids the whole time I was in there, and it didn't affect me the way it should as a mother. And when I got out, it was hard because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. And I ended up relapsing not long after I got out of recovery or out of treatment. And that weekend was pretty hard. I went to work and everybody knew I was using, but I just didn't like the way I felt anymore. I didn't like the way it made my body hurt or the way I wanted it more. And I just felt gross. I felt disgusted with myself when I got out of treatment. I did good for the first 2 weeks, and then I relapsed. And after that, that was the one time I relapsed. After that, I didn't ever again. I actually reached out to my sponsor and told her, because I had never really cared that I relapsed. And to me, I was like, oh, I'll just go to prison this time. And I called her and we sat outside forever, and I called my PO and she told me that I was the first person she gave a second chance to. And she told me that she knew that I would do great things. And I never went back. I mean, it was hard, but I never went back. I found God. And so it was hard for me because I had made the decision in treatment not to get my kids back for at least a year after I was sober. And the first month, I got a call saying that if I didn't take my daughter back, that her grandma was gonna hurt her. So I took one of my kids back, and then the next day, Officer Prince showed up with all my other kids and said, "You got this, they need to be with you." And I didn't know what to do because I wasn't expecting my kids back. So it was pretty rough. So I was going to treatment, doing with my kids, and it seemed like every time I started doing good, something else happened. Like, I have a very crazy recovery, like if you heard from like the beginning to the end. Like, so many things have happened, and I don't know why. Okay, I know I'm still here because of God, but if I wouldn't have found him, I probably would be dead right now. So many things happened. My dad went to jail. Family members, I'd cut everybody off. It was just, like I said, so many things happened. I got my kids back overnight. And like I said, my dad went to jail. And because of what, he was in jail for, I was getting death threats. I went to work and they had to put me by an exit door because people were coming in and harassing me. And like, my sister lost her kids, my brother tried to kill himself, and like all these things just kept happening. Like, I almost lost my job for things, and it just seemed like every time something went wrong, that somehow I had the strength in me, and the more and more that I, stayed sober, the more and more I was like, I'm not doing this alone. There's God's got me, because there was no way I was gonna make it without, so many things happened. My kid's dad went to prison, and he ended up getting his son back. Well, he didn't know it was his son, but he ended up getting placed with his dad. And not a couple months later, he went to prison. And I ended up having another kid that wasn't mine, that I took in. And I'm the only parent that he really knew, because his dad spent most of his life in jail, and his mom's not in the picture. And it seemed like I keep bringing kids in somehow. Other people's, I ended up getting kids from all over. Like I said, my mom passed away when I was 12, and I didn't have a good relationship with my parents. I was kind of like the black sheep. Like, my grandpa used to tell me I was a disgrace because of my weight. And it was just horrible things like that. We were neglected because our parents were always drinking. And I didn't know my parents were using drugs until years later. And so I kind of had to take care, we had to take care of ourselves. And so I didn't really know how to be a mom, because I didn't have a mom, and our dad wasn't there. So, because after my mom passed away, he fell into drugs pretty hard. And I ended up getting into bad relationships, ones that I know now that were not okay at that age. But to me, it was just normal. And I was terrified to have kids. I didn't want kids, because I didn't want them to go through what we had to. And now I see I don't want them to have to feel that way again. I don't want them to have to feel what I did. So I try everything to be a part of everything. I make them go out. I also run a Girl Scout troop that my kids are involved in. And like I said, I do the mentoring and the ministry and the prison ministry and all these other things to keep me going. And that's what keeps me going, is knowing that even if just one person takes something from it, then hopefully I can save that one person. Because I don't want anybody to have to go through what I did. Because it got to a point where I would pretty much sleep with dealers to get what I wanted. And to me, it was normal. And I had always told myself I would never do this, I would never do that. And I ended up doing all of it. So now I'm just like, I throw myself into things around the community and making sure that my story gets out there so that other people, hopefully it helps one person. In my ministry group, I actually shared most of my story. And I'm not ashamed of my story. I like people to put it out there. And we ended up putting it on Facebook, and it got shared, and it was shared over 1,000 times, and there was tons of views. And I actually had somebody from Egypt reach out to my ministry because they seen my story and everything, so we got involved with that too. So it was pretty crazy. So the more and more, it's just awesome. They ask me that all the time about how I'm able to do everything. People tell me how they look up to me because I do so many things, because I have 5 kids and I do all that stuff, and it just makes me happy. So I don't even think about not having all this stuff to do. To me, it's just another part of keeping myself sane and sober, and making sure that, my kids know that even though I messed up in the past, that they have something to look up to now. They know that they can do whatever they want to. They just need to work at it. That my oldest daughter, we didn't have a good relationship, and she told me a couple years ago that how proud she was of me, because she honestly thought I was never going to come back. And they're not scared for me to leave anymore. They go with me to a lot of these things, and they get to see what I do and see all the hard work. And I have people reach out to me all the time about stuff because they know me from all these different programs, and I'm able to help them. During the quarantine, I had multiple parents reach out to me because their kids were struggling. and I was able to talk with them and, you know, help them work through what they needed to. And at the same time, my kids, I learned a lot from the kids in middle school because my daughter was coming up to that age and I had no idea what to expect because the way she was brought up was totally different than what I did. And so they actually helped me become a better mom because I'd go home and I'd use the things that they would tell me that they wanted their parents to do. And it was a blessing because we ended up getting closer. I mean, we have our moments, but it's just the feeling I get helping people, it's indescribable. I don't want people to, you know, be envious or anything like that of me because it's hard. It's not easy doing all these things because sometimes there is things that get in the way and it, you know, pushes me down. But at the same time, I look around and I see all the things I do and the people I help, and I look back at stories I've heard, and I know that even if I make it through that one day sober, that there's always another day where I can start over and redo anything that I failed on the day before. And it's just to have so many people around me that support me, it's just a blessing. I don't talk to a lot of family because they still use. And I've found family in so many different places here that I never knew was possible. And I know that no matter what happens, that there's always somebody that I have there for me. And I want to be able to know that people think the same thing about me whenever they're going through tough times.